Hello and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be talking about the highly anticipated, at least by me, return of Gore Verbinski, the incredibly talented filmmaker behind such classic films as the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy, The Ring remake, and Rango, as well as his most recent film, A Cure for Wellness, a film that I really liked, but whose financial failure essentially blackmailed him from Hollywood for the past decade. He's back now with a new original science fiction film with a very interesting concept, and I can't wait to talk with you guys about this film today. So without any further ado, let's talk about it. Let's review. Good luck, have fun, don't die. So as I was saying, this is Gore Verbinski's return for the first time in about a decade after his failure with A Cure for Wellness. Now that was a film that has developed a bit of a cult following now, and I'm definitely someone who's a member of that cult, as I've loved that movie though since its release. I went and saw it in theaters. I was really excited about it because I've always been a bit of a Verbinski fan. He's someone that really got me into film with The Ring, which really got me hooked on horror movies from a young age. So I owe a lot to him for my interest in cinema, and especially within horror films particularly. So for that reason, I always have a soft spot for him, but I also just think he's an incredibly talented filmmaker who has a wide range of abilities, as displayed in films like The Ring, which is more of a moody horror movie. And then you have things like Pirates of the Caribbean, which is these bombastic, swashbuckling action adventures that are really family fun and great mainstream entertainment that make tons of money at the box office. And then you have other films like Rango, which shows his ability within the animated medium. Rango's a really awesome Western movie. I love that film. And then A Cure for Wellness kind of goes back to the well of The Ring, but instead kind of leans more so on a gothic horror framework and really goes much more weird than The Ring was willing to, and surreal. And I just really love that. And it wasn't as mainstream as even something like The Ring, which really resonated with a lot of horror fans. So absolutely, I think Gore Verbinski is an extremely talented filmmaker. And with something like Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, I saw like one teaser trailer for it, and that was enough. Just the fact that Verbinski was coming back, I didn't really want to see too much about it. I knew that Sam Rockwell was in it, and he's an actor I like as well. So there was a lot going into this movie that I was excited about. I tried to obviously always temper my expectations somewhat. I don't want to give it unfair expectations for a movie, but this is a movie that I think delivered a really fun and enjoyable time. It has some flaws for sure, but it's a really good movie in my opinion, and it's one that I think will kind of become a cult classic along with some of his other movies, and is a really touching example of the type of cinema that we need from a really talented craftsman who's still operating at a high level even after the long absence. So this is a film that is really going along with obviously a lot of science fiction tropes and things from a long time ago, and there's a long tradition within science fiction of AI and discussing the perils of it and the negative possibilities that could be associated with it. There's almost all sort of art and entertainment that's been made about AI has had sort of negative views on the technology and the potential of what would happen if we actually did make an AI, especially one that was smarter than ourselves, and the potential sort of catastrophic effects that would happen. And this is another one that's within that long tradition, but it's also one that feels very urgent and topical in the moment when we're having a lot of discussions as a society about AI and about the potential that we're going to see it be realized, right? We're still in the early stages of it, and there's a lot of critics, obviously, of AI, and there's a lot of people that just straight up refuse to use it or operate within it. But then there's also a lot of people that are sort of very overambitious as to what they say it's going to be possible to do with it. And so it's like, where exactly is it going to land? And I think this is a film that is looking at it from a humanistic perspective and looking at a lot of the negative sort of things that have happened as a consequence of our rising sort of addiction to technology just in general, and then the way that AI would be able to sort of tap into that and make an all-encompassing sort of distraction machine. And we're already getting this, obviously, with social media algorithms and cell phones and all these things that are meant to sort of hook us and keep us on apps like TikTok and Twitter for a long time. And I think that this is just a film that's dealing with that, and it's sort of like this primal scream of rage saying just to get off your phone, which in a lot of ways, like, I could see a lot of people taking the wrong message from this movie, but I don't think it's necessarily just a old man yelling at the clouds type of movie, but it's a humanistic sort of just scream for let's like actually appreciate what makes us human, and that includes art as well. And that's what types of movies like this, I think that I respect the fact that it is a low budget movie, but it's really leaning on practical effects and in sets that can be made in an easy way that look visually appealing, but look real and have a grounded look to them. And I think that that is what works so well in this movie. So this is a movie that is lower budget, maybe than A Cure for Wellness or some of Verbinski's other films, but he's still able to really have some really interesting visual flares within it, while not falling into the trap of so many filmmakers of his era to really just lean in on CGI even when you have a lower budget, which makes movies look just disgusting and sloppy and everything, and I hate that. And so yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in this movie from a visual perspective, from a filmmaking perspective, and then also the story as well. It's like I said, it's not just an old man yelling at the clouds film, but I could definitely see sort of some generational divide discourse happening as a relation to this movie. There's all sorts of discussion of like kids these days and their phones, and in relation to like education and things like that. And there's a lot of very bleak and dark humor in this movie that's sort of poking fun at sort of social commentary, I guess you could say, like social commentary issues and things like that, and like school shootings and, like I said, social media addiction. So there's a lot going on, and I could definitely see people saying like, oh, they're just trying to like make fun of like Gen Z and Gen Alpha and their addiction to social media, but not really understanding it or whatever. But I think that there is a little bit more understanding beyond just, there is some jokes that are like, okay, it's kind of like old man yelling at the clouds humor, but at the same time, I think it works because of everything else it's saying. It's not just calling out one group of people, I would say, and it's not just using cliches to do it. It's talking about it all in general, our whole humanity and the way that we fall into these machines. And it's absolutely something that's true, right? I mean, we can sort of be mad about it all we want, but this idea of social media algorithms and feeding them and falling trapped to them, right? So many people now are just constantly getting enraged by their social media algorithm that's designed to make them angry, so they still spend more and more time, and spend forever on the apps, never even looking up from their phones to actually take in the world and enjoy it. And it's insane what's happened to our society as a relation to social media and the negative consequences of it. And so I could see tying that to AI and understanding the sort of potential negative effects that could be happening. And I could definitely see what this movie's saying, and I think a lot of people are saying the same thing. And so it is going to have an audience where it's like preaching to the choir, and then a lot of people are just going to kind of laugh at it and move on and go back to their social media addicted lives. So I just think this is one of those movies where Gore Verbinski is clearly trying to sort of have a really strong message and really try and impact the viewer and leave them feeling like they want to change their lifestyle and try and help change the world, which I know that sounds almost corny in a way, but I think that that's what every filmmaker that's really trying to make interesting films should be thinking in the back of their head. This is a great quote that Hayao Miyazaki had in this documentary I saw a while ago. I didn't actually see the full documentary, but I saw this clip. And it's sort of a kind of famous moment, I guess, where Hayao Miyazaki is talking about his son Goro's film, and he's talking about how he's sort of just still a child and things like that. And he says all these incredibly harsh things about Goro, in which I don't think are necessarily appropriate, but at the end of the day, he did say something really, really hard-hitting within that sort of interview that he was giving, where he talked about how you really have to feel like you're going to change the world, even if you aren't really going to be able to. You have to feel like you're going to when you make a movie. You just have to. And he was basically saying Goro wasn't doing that, and Goro was just sort of rehashing what's been done before, and whatever. That's like not a nice thing, I guess, to say with your own son. But at the end of the day, I did think that that was a really beautiful statement about art and about filmmaking in general. And I think Verbinski is taking that kind of sort of approach to this film. He knows that more than likely this is going to be a film that kind of comes and goes and probably doesn't make that much money at the box office. Maybe it'll get a little bit of fans off streaming and things like that, but it's really going to be a film that the mainstream just completely doesn't even know exists. And so there's not really going to be a huge potential for change, but maybe in a few people's minds. And that's what he's trying to sort of do. He's trying really hard, I feel like, to send this message, and maybe that's going to be off-putting to some people. It's going to be a little bit too ham-fisted for some people, and I think maybe it could have been incorporated well. I think, maybe a little bit better than it was, but at the end of the day, that's the whole point of the movie. So obviously it's going to keep hitting you over the head with it. That's the movie, right? And so I think that this is a movie that is really going within that Miyazaki framework of we're trying to change the world here. And I think that's what makes exciting original films, especially within the genre world, so exciting, is that they're willing to take chances and to push things and push the envelope. And this is a film that's pretty original, even though it's taking like a Terminator-style approach to filmmaking and storytelling. It's like taking so many cliches and tropes from science fiction, but putting them together in a more original way, which is something that Verbinski always does, right? He always takes what he loves from genre filmmaking, mashes it all together, puts his own heart into it, makes it visually interesting and, craftsmanlike, and then it just ends up becoming this weird fusion that is original and fun, and it's just such a breath of fresh air in this era we're in now with filmmaking that is so stale and repetitive and unwilling to take chances. That's what Verbinski is always willing to do, is take chances in making a fun, enjoyable movie that also has meaning and depth to it and great characterization. It always has great performances coming out of his movies as well. So I do respect a lot of what's going on in this movie. There is flaws. I think it's overly long. I think Verbinski's always had that problem. He makes movies that are just way too damn long. And this is another one, and it really didn't need to be as long as it was, right? They dragged it out a little bit. And I think that maybe he could have shortened it a little bit, edited it a little bit down, maybe cut some things out in the screenplay, and that is a problem, right? Maybe edit it down a little bit, make it more snappy and fast paced. Maybe some of the jokes don't land as well, and you could cut out some of that. Though some of the jokes really did land well and are such dark humor. There's such dark humor in this movie, and you're like, this is going in a really depressing direction. How on earth are you going to make this funny? And yet he still does, and yet keeps that humanistic touch, because there's moments where you really do feel for these people as human beings, even though it's a completely ridiculous situation. And so I love that, and I love the little vignettes that happen throughout the movie. So yeah, these vignettes I'm talking about, they're little backstories that sort of show us the world in an absolutely ridiculous light while still having some heart to them, and they really do pack a punch, while also at the same time being ridiculous and just the most insane black humor possible, and it's so weird and off-putting sometimes, yet it works so well, and my audience at least was just eating up the humor, as was I. I really appreciated it as well, and it's stuff that, you wouldn't necessarily usually go to for humor, school shootings, and social media addiction of kids. I guess that's something that is done in a kind of stupid way a lot of times, but in here it was just so ridiculous and sci-fi tropey that it was fun and it was an enjoyable time. And as I was talking about earlier, Verbinski really doesn't overuse CGI. I've talked about this with some of my reviews of films like In the Lost Lands by Paul W.S. Anderson, as well as Return to Silent Hill by Christoph Gans. These are filmmakers that were operating within the early 2000s and even into the 90s, right? These were filmmakers that sort of understood, at least at that time, or at least they gave lip service to the idea of practical effects, with CGI being an enhancing factor. But nowadays they've completely forgotten that and have just way overused CGI. In Return to Silent Hill, there is a lot of practical effects, but there's some really ugly CGI that's used way too often that just makes everything look ugly. And then also just the camera work and editing is just so ugly in that movie. Here, the editing, the camera work, the practical effects, the way everything is shot, it feels grounded and real while also having sort of zany and elaborate moments of filmmaking. And Verbinski is clearly having a lot of fun with it, while also still having a kind of grounded craftsman-like approach to his filmmaking. So he's definitely one of those rare filmmakers operating within our current time, within genre filmmaking, who understands still to strike a balance and not way overuse CGI. And this is a film that definitely doesn't have as much like beautiful landscapes as you had in something like A Cure for Wellness or The Ring. It's a much more grounded sense of fun and sort of beautiful visuals, though there is a few moments here and there that really do showcase that sort of patented Verbinski ability to make just gorgeous shots and moments. And especially towards the end, we have a little bit of that, which I love. And so this is a film that I really do cherish, and I think it's that type of movie that's original and is fun and is something that everyone's always saying that they're begging for and crying for, and oh my gosh, it's remakes and sequels. And yet those are the only movies anyone ever goes out to support. And no one ever goes out to support these original fun films from talented, established filmmakers that are saying, look, come on, I've already proven to you that I can make fun movies. You just gotta take a shot. And nobody ever does. And I understand that marketing isn't really big with movies like this, but I just wish that these people that were constantly complaining and saying that they want original movies would put in the work to actually go and watch those original movies like I do and support them. So I'll just say that this is one of those movies that I think, like I said, it's just going to come and go. Everyone's just going to forget about it. It'll have a small little cult following of fans. Verbinski fans will like it, and then everyone else is just going to not even realize it ever came out. That's really all I have to say about this movie. This is a really fun, original movie with a great concept. It delivers on it. And if you're a Verbinski fan, you are going to love this. I definitely can guarantee you that. If you don't really know about Verbinski that much, but you just like original sort of science fiction films and you like having a fun time at the theater with dark humor, I definitely would recommend you go and see this movie because this is definitely one that I really do appreciate and like as a genre film fan. And I think Verbinski is one of the more talented filmmakers and one that I'm so glad is back directing. He's someone that, like I always say, is very craftsmanlike. He's just someone that just feels like of a different era. He's just a refreshing sort of voice in this era of so much sort of uniformity and boring filmmaking choices or ugly, sloppy messes. This is one that just understands how to make a good, fun time with practical effects and a little bit of sprinkling of CGI. So that's what I really do like and respect about it. It's one that sort of comments on a lot of things in our society in a smart but sometimes ham-fisted way that you could say sometimes doesn't really hit the mark, but sometimes it really does. And while it has the most ridiculous dark humor possible, it still has a heart to it and great characterization with some of these characters. Good performances by like Sam Rockwell and Juno Temple and some of the other. Haley Wu Richardson also does a good job. There's some really good actors in here that are giving good performances, even though, some of them are a bit just ridiculous and hammy, but I love those ones too. So this is definitely a film I would recommend, and I'm just so excited Verbinski's back. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications every time I drop a new video. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Long and awaited, at least for me, return of Vor.